digitalization is one of the tactics to present or communicate Islam. So how far it is appropriate to term digital Islam? Another question, what is the impact of the digitalization in Islamic scholarship rather than communicating or presenting Islam?
Yes, thank you very much. Last, yes, microphone over there.
Okay, thank you for your insightful presentations. My name is Nazif. I'm a student of Communication Science from the University of Marzubuana, Yogyakarta. I'm confused that if we see the sociologists or the political scientists, we know that they have very well addressed in addressing these digital disruptions. I want to ask to you, is it possible for the Islamic studies to not trap it in the paradigms of utopia or dystopia in the philosophy of technology? Because we know that the technology itself is something very dichotomous paradigms like that. Is it possible for us to project any features of Islam in the complementarian paradigm? Thank you.
Yes. What do you
take 6 hours just to respond, just to share some question about the acceptance of casual imams, and also whether we can think about this style as being more associated with progressive or conservative orientations. The appearance of these casual imams, as you can imagine, has been very controversial in some circles. And I think part of it is because the more traditional religious experts feel somewhat threatened by these people, because they're able to look at the audience numbers and they see young people moving over towards the casual option, you know, and so their initial response is usually to say, you know, these casual imams are insulting the religion. Their adab is bad. Everything, you know, it's unsafe to follow them. But unfortunately, the market seems to speak for itself, and in some cases, you've seen more traditional figures have to adapt to the realities that they have to change aspects of their own approach if they want to maintain the audience numbers. And that's what young people in particular seem to want to consume. And the most successful of these casual imams, I think it's important to note, are people who have classically trained education. They have the correct credential to the Salafi trend, for example. Among Muslims in North America and Europe, there's this online academy, Islamic academy, called the Maghrib Institute, which offers short online courses and weekend retreats, executive-style education. All of their religious scholars come from the Salafi current. You know, many of them have studied at the Islamic University in Medina, for example. One of them, and they sell themselves in that way. If you look at to be the singer in a punk rock band, but then he decided to change his life, and he went to Medina, and he studied, and now he's an alim, but he also likes to snowboard and skateboard. And it's okay to do that. You can be a Salafi and have fun, right? And this is part of why this is so popular. When it comes to issues with respect to women, for example, they are still actually very conservative in most regards. The people with this Maghrib Institute, they're Salafis. So, you know, you actually get that Salafi position, but it's articulated and explained, you know, in a different manner. Others like Suhaib Webb, the one who does the sort of short fatwas, he's an Azhari trained scholar, but he's worked very hard to recognize that in a context such as the United States, most young Muslims in the United States, according to opinion polls, support same-sex marriage. That's where the community is. And so he's someone who has tried to find a way to navigate between prevailing social attitudes and the teachings of religion through very creative use of jurisprudential works. And so I think there's, in particularly with regard to questions of family and women, there's some very creative, innovative work going on in these online spaces. How can moderate Islam compete when we have online spaces that often will trap people and confine them to very narrow and rigid approaches? This is a very important question. We've seen it debated a lot in the context of the online recruitment and radicalization efforts of groups like ISIS, for example. But even putting the violent extremist phenomenon aside, I think there's this broader challenge that because of the way the underlying algorithms of online search platforms are built, it means that one easily, once you begin watching one channel, you fall down into a deeper layer of that same trend, and you go down from there. So I think this is precisely why we see a crisis that's been recognized and is being debated within policy circles, where experts, policymakers, and the representatives of the major online platforms are sitting together to try and figure out how to do this. Because the platforms, of course, want to try to maintain the idea that they are neutral, right? But we know in practice that it doesn't work that way. And so this is precisely why we have to have interesting debates and discussions about the algorithms themselves. This gets down to the level of code, right? And so I think this is where, I threw out this notion of halal algorithms, right? Now, I don't know who would be responsible for identifying and certifying the halalness of a given algorithm, but I think it is possible to think and talk and reflect in the area of coding and the development and design of the underlying systems, mechanisms for ensuring that at the very least we're getting a diversity of perspectives that are offered. Again, this is something where the coders and the technology specialists need to be in touch with the specialists in Islamic studies and those who understand the context of content. And I think this is the future, the coming together of those two communities. We're running out of time, aren't we? Yes, okay. The boundaries of digital Islam. Yeah, I mean, it's not just about digitizing texts. I'm trying to suggest that we should be thinking of digital Islam as meaning the intersection, the encounter, the coming together of digital technologies of all kinds and Islamic thought and practice. So it's not just scanning texts and making them available online. It's not just about new kinds of imams. It's potentially about the way that technology transforms how we think and do religion, transforms religious experience more fundamentally. But again, there are potentially downsides to that. This book by Hussein Kasbani, for example, that new book on Follow Me, Ahi, he has an example where there's these two guys living in London who have been attending a mosque for Jummah prayer where the khutbah is always given in Urdu. They don't speak Urdu. The imam who gives it has been imported from Pakistan for 6 months at a time. And he speaks and they don't understand a thing. They feel completely alienated from the mosque. So they decided to create their own customized Jummah experience. And the two of them go to their apartment and they start by finding online on YouTube some video that engages religion in a way that helps them feel like better people and more spiritual, and then they perform their prayer together. So how should we think about that in terms of Islamic proprietary and Islamic norms? On the one hand, it's good that this customized private Jummah actually keeps them engaged with religion, because before they were not going to mosque anymore because they couldn't engage in any way. So on the one hand, the technology keeps them in their deen. But on the other hand, we know historically that the maqasid behind Jummah, the purpose of it is community, to bring people together. Right? So on the one hand, they're staying with religion, but they're losing the social aspect of it, the coming together, the meeting of other people. So it has these two sides to it. There was a very interesting question about possible futures for Islam online. I think in the interest of time, we should probably wrap up. I've tried to share some basic ideas about that, but I would love to talk with you afterwards in more detail. Thank you very much.
I believe there are still many more questions to raise. We can continue our discussion for another 2 hours. That time is limited, and we will have another session, quite interesting session, special panel 1 and special panel 2. Here in this one, in this room, special panel 1, with 4 scholars, researchers, Graben, Omariat, Lam Nailan, and Fatima Hussain, yes, and will be moderated by Ibu Akali. We have to give big applause to Peter Dawes. Yeah. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Tingkat appreciation, tentukan appreciation.